Hi guys, hope you're doing well. This is going to be a video which I've roughly got titled, I'm thinking will be the Rise of the Beast Empire. It's kind of a fallout from the election that we kind of have just experienced and some of the ramifications of it. And as many Bible students have looked at these things for years and years, just some of the things that I'm kind of looking at and seeing, and we'll see. We'll see how things fall out. But anyway, if you like what you're seeing, please like, subscribe, share it with other people that you think might benefit. Uh, Really, that's the goal of doing these, is help other Christians grow in areas maybe they haven't studied or looked at, or maybe they're new to the faith, and this will help them in their walk, their journey with the Lord. So really, that's the goal. So hopefully it's a blessing to you. Hopefully you're liking these things, and I'll keep doing them, and hopefully people will keep liking, subscribing, sharing. So that's really the goal, hopefully. Anyway, let's jump into it here. So with the election, what's some of the things that we as Christians, and Bible students, like I said, have looked at this for years, and similar to how we saw the demise of the Soviet Union. And many Christians said, it just didn't fit. The Soviet Union was really kind of a forced fit. It just didn't fit what we saw with Ezekiel and other things. It seemed like there would have to be a change or transformation. And suddenly there was one, and it happened very quickly, very rapidly. If people go back and look at, the 89, 90 period, 89 in particular, the Soviet Union just basically disintegrated before our eyes very quickly. You had Gorbachev would come on the scene, and Glasnost, and all this stuff was, perestroika, and all this stuff was happening. And then you just had the disintegration of the Soviet Union over a short period of time. And then the emergence of America as the most dominant empire, really the nation in the world. Well, at the same time, you have what we see today. And what biblical students have looked at this and said, and what I'm saying as well, and I've said for a long time, if the beast empire is going to come on the scene, the Bible gives us a little bit of information about it. It doesn't give us a ton of information, but it gives us some information. We're going to look at just two real quickly. One, so if you got your Bible, we're going to be looking at Daniel 7, and we're going to be looking at Revelation 18. There's other places, but these are the ones we're just going to focus on. So hopefully this will make sense as we go through it. So a couple of things that came out of this election that I noticed. Well, number one was, the vast majority of the populace have voted, and they are all saying, basically when 77 plus million people, voting people, vote for a socialist party, what it's telling you is that there's been a transformation. And for the last four elections, that's happened. So you're looking over the last 16 years, the Democratic Party has got the populist vote. So if the populace is telling you that they've moved towards globalism, socialism, and secular humanism, that's what you're seeing, because that's what that party represents. Believe it or not, that is their mantra. That's what they believe. So they believe in socialism or collectivism. They believe in globalism. Which basically they believe that they're just one of many nations, and that we're all in this big globalist world together, and we should work together as an entity, and not so much as nationalism, looking for out your national interest, but more of a globalistic view of the world, and that we should, in essence, have no borders. We should all be able to just come and go as we will, and basically we become more, instead of Americans, we become earthlings or humans, as it were, in a sense of how we're global citizens rather than national citizens. That's how they view globalism. And you have global government that will oversee the nation states, and it's kind of how they look at it. That's kind of how that party seems to be. And they seem to definitely embrace secular humanism, which is, definitely one of their foundations. Which ecumenicalism and secular humanism. So they don't believe that there's any specific God. They don't believe that there's that one God is true and all others are false. Obviously, Christians, we do. We believe that there's only one God, Yahweh, Elohim, Jehovah, and that makes up the triunity God, Godhead of God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, the Son being obviously the Messiah, the second person of the Trinity God who came down, took on flesh, hypostatic union and became the mediator between God and man, and is our Savior who made final atonement for us. That's the God that we believe is the only God, the only creator. All other gods are false. So, all of them, Allah and, Buddhist, whatever religions out there, all those are false according to Christianity. So obviously that group does not accept that. So what we've seen is this massive movement to vote in. So we see this ideology that has swung in America over to this globalistic, socialistic, secular humanistic mindset or philosophy, worldview, primarily permeated through the public school system, indoctrination, colleges, and so forth. But it's taken root. We see that it's been 16 years of this, so it's not an anomaly. It's there. So this tells us there's a change, and that's what people, Christians, have been saying for a long time that have looked into prophecy, myself included, that there has to be a transformation of America because ultimately we know that this beast empire, this final beast empire, must arise. Now, some people look at it historically, it has to be geographically Rome. I disagree. I always thought that this will be, when it talks about the two legs and how, you notice how the two legs branched out, and we look at that often as Rome and Constantinople, that, because it became from one to the thighs became two branches, and then you have a merging of the 10 toes, which again branches out again when you start talking about the feet and the 10 toes. And these 10 kingdoms that it's talking about for this final empire, which will be miry clay and iron mingled together. And we get this from Daniel's prophecy that was given to him by angel or in a dream given to Nebuchadnezzar, which Daniel interprets for him, that God has given him the answer to. So God gave Nebuchadnezzar this dream of all the empires. You can read this like in Daniel chapter 2, if I remember correctly. So you go through there, and it basically talks about these kingdoms, and he gives the explanation. And then in 7, 8, and so forth, 7 and 8 primarily, and 9, he kind of goes into the interpretations of these beast empires, and then we get into the Messiah who's to come, and ultimately this prince is to come, which we know is the beast, the Antichrist figure. Well, this is going to play a role as well. So this is all in 7, 8, 9 roughly, and then in Revelation it gives us more interpretation of who this final prince who is to come, this Antichrist figure, and it gives us a view of his beast empire that will be global. It will only last for a short period of time, 1 hour. Well, if that's the case, then what we have is a image or a picture of what we kind of expect to happen. And so with this rise of the beast empire, which we should see happening, I think with this election, either way it was going, I thought, and many other Christians I think have agreed with me as well, that we've all come to the same conclusion that America must transform and either become part of this beast empire, and that's where I said it branches out, and it will be a global empire, and it'll be unlike any other. It clearly talks about this beast empire being unique and unlike any other, and I think that's what we're seeing. I think that's where we're headed. So we're going to look at a couple of verses real quick. We'll first look at Revelation, turn to 17, and you'll see where it's talking about this mystery Babylon of harlots, abominations. When it's talking about this ecumenical religion that this woman situated, obviously it's no doubt that it's situated in Rome. We can see that from a number of places, but verse 18 nails that down for us very well. The woman who you saw was the great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. During the writing, he says, during the writing of this, that was Rome. Rome was the city that ruled over the kings of the earth at the time. So for sure it's situated in Rome. So we know that to be the Roman Catholic Church will be this harlot system that is part of this global ecumenical final religion that ultimately will put their faith and alliance toward this Antichrist figure, which they will look at as some kind of Mahdi messianic reincarnation of Christ. However they word it, that's what I think they're going to try to put out there, because it's got to appeal to all religions, and that's how I think they'll put it. A reincarnation of Christ, which is the Mahdi, blah, blah, blah. And then however they mingle it, that's what basically I think how they're going to word it. And they're already preaching ecumenicalism on a regular basis. This is Pope Francis, Pope Paul II before him, and so forth, and on it goes. All preach ecumenicalism. They all are endorsing it. They have numerous meetings and where you have all the religious leaders of the world come together in Rome, blah, blah, blah. So I think for sure, no doubt about it, that's where it's going to be headed up at, but it will be global. It won't be isolated to the Roman Catholic Church. So I don't think I'll pick it on Catholics. It's going to be all religions. So that means Protestant religions, churches, and that's why you see them embracing all kinds of abnormal, unbiblical ideals. That's why you see the contemporary Christian artists are made up of Catholics and everything else, and atheists even, and everything else, and they're supposedly singing Christian songs, and they're embracing this whole harmonious all together, kumbaya. We're all hand in hand, and ecumenicalist love for everybody, unite all together. It doesn't matter what you believe, as long as you just feel good about it and love each other and have positive thoughts. Joel Osteen-esque type of, Rick Warren-esque type of thoughts. That's basically what you see coming out of the contemporary Christian music, which is primarily one of the big movers within evangelical, or I want to say more Protestant type churches. And then, you have true Christians who actually primarily in evangelical churches that are more traditionally based in Scripture, true Christians that truly don't hold to these things, and that's always that remnant that's going to be there. So hopefully that's who I'm appealing to and talking to. So anyway, as we get into it, it talks about this beast empire. Says you get towards about the middle of chapter 17. He goes in and says, verse 11 says, the beast which was and is not is himself also an eighth, and is one of the seven, and he goes to his destruction. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but they receive authority as king with the beast for 1 hour. So this Antichrist figure is the beast, and he's going to receive his authority for 1 hour, this 10 nation kingdom. These have one purpose, and they give their power and authority to the beast. So this 10 nation coalition that will rise up is going to be for a very short period of time. So it's got to come up very rapidly, very quickly, and it's got to have a lot of power. Well, there's only one way that's going to happen. If America is either that means America, as the predominant power in the world, must either break apart, fraction, which we're going to see, like we see right now, or some form of fracturing, or it's got to become part of this globalistic, world full of a final empire made up of 10 nations. So you'll see a final 10 nation confederation that will rise up, and all these will then give their authority to this beast. It'll be very similar to what we see with the European Union. That's kind of like the model. And I think America will be part of this final beast empire. And the reason why is because it has to have dominant empire. It won't have time to build it. It's got to have it. Military equipment, all the things, and it's got to be global. And that's what I was talking about with this how we saw the Roman Empire spread out to Constantinople and Rome. Now you have the 10 legs, it's going to spread out, and it's going to have 10, it's going to spread out through the whole world. And that's why I think you're going to have America, maybe Canada, maybe who knows, but they're all together. It'll be either a fraction of the United States breaking up, and then that either becomes 10 portions, and then you have these 10 regional governors who then give their power to one guy, who then who's then ultimately will be the Antichrist, will come up probably after the current people who's in office right now. I don't think Biden is Antichrist. I think that this 4 years under them will just perpetuate the move towards a globalistic type of federation, especially if there's an economic chaos and things that are happening, which I think might happen, especially if he locks everything down and spends money like crazy, which I think they're going to do. They're going to print paper like crazy, and I think you're going to have a destruction of the dollar, and then ultimately, because you're going to have a global marking system, a new economic system that will be the beast economic system, which we get from Revelation 13. We won't have time to read that, but Revelation 13 talks about this final beast economic system that everybody will have to take a mark. So that's got to come. That means the dollar's dominance has to decline, has to fall off. We see that happening, and I think with the destruction of the dollar, because I think with Biden and them getting in office, this every socialist government has ever been in office, they usually always bankrupt the country and suppress their own people, and often they always have to have a boogeyman that they have to go after. they're going to have to go after somebody who is the bad guy, somebody they'll classify as the racist or whatever they want to classify them as, the bad person holding everybody down or back. Well, that group is primarily going to be conservatives, but it's probably going to be Christians, in my opinion. They're going to go after Christians. They're going to go after conservatives. It doesn't matter your color, but primarily I think it's going to be towards white Christians, and anyone who's along with them will also be thrown into it. If you're black, Asian, it doesn't matter. You're helping that boogeyman over there that's causing all the problems. And so you're a traitor, in essence, what they'll say to them. They'll call you all those names, Uncle Tom's or whatever they want to call you, and throw you in with the bunch, as it were. Just like they killed Christians and stuff who were trying to help the Jews. They'll look at them and say, well, you're just as bad then, and they killed them as well. So Bonhoeffer, those kind of people. So, you get these kind of people. So anyway, it talks about that. Also Daniel chapter, we'll just look at a 1. So Daniel chapter 7, where just prior to you getting into where it talks about this, the presentation of the Son of Man, the famous one, which, Christophany, where you see Christ before his actual first coming is presented. We see that image of him, again, which is a reflection of his deity as well. So anybody who has any doubt about Jesus' deity, Daniel 7 puts that to rest, verses 13 and 14. But if you get into it, it talks about in verse 7 and 8 primarily is our focus. And it just goes in and says, after this I kept looking in the night visions, behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrifying and extremely strong, and it had large iron teeth. It devoured and crushed and trampled down the remainder with its feet, and it was different from all the other beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. While I was contemplating the horns, behold, another horn, a little horn came up, which we know is the Antichrist, this beast empire. And 3 of the first horns were pulled up out of its root before it, and behold, this horn possessed eyes like the eyes of a man, and mouth uttered great boasts. Now, there's a couple of ways you could look at that. This horn being this Antichrist figure who comes up very shortly, very quickly, and reigns for a very short period of time. It doesn't have this normal, existence like the other ones. Some will look at this and say, well, this horn, it could also represent the nation itself, which, came up very late, but reigned and overthrew 3 of these other empires at some point in time. So America could kind of fit in that role, or could be the beast empire, whatever it is. How it came up late, well after all these other nations as a nation state, or it could just be the Antichrist himself who comes on the scene very late, but reigns for a very short period of time. Depending on how you look at that, it could be either one. But in any case, what we should be looking for, and there's other things you can look at in chapter 8 and so forth that we won't have time to get into that. But as you look at this, it all points to one thing, that America must demise. America must either fracture, break apart into sections with regional governors who then ultimately give their power and authority to one, or America itself, even if there is fracture, I still think it's going to probably just demise. And then it ultimately will have to reinvent itself, or like most of them, look for a way to continue its strength and power and influence in the world. And it will look around and try to find, especially if you have the Gog-Magog war that takes place, this federation. And this federation will come together very rapidly, very quickly, like I said, for 1 hour. And when it does, what we'll start to see is this federation of 10 nations that will then, I think the United States will be part of it, probably one of the preeminent nations in that 10-nation coalition. And then out of that will come this Antichrist figure. And it will make up, and it will be situated in maybe parts, it will maybe have parts of if the European Union breaks apart, or, because there's a lot of talk of nations pulling out, like Brexit and so forth, you could see where maybe Rome would become, or Italy may become part of that, or Spain, or some of those old empires may become part of this beast empire. Greece, you see the UK. It'll be interesting, but it's going to be global. It's going to be powerful. That's what we're looking for. That's what I'm looking for. Is something like that to happen. And like I said, we should be looking for some kind of demise of the dollar and demise of the United States, either in some way of turmoil, fracturing, or, like I said, just economically. And then we'll see with the, keep our eye on the Gog-Magog war alliance, which is forming around us all the time, is up, it's already there. It just has to be implemented into an attack on Israel, which we know is coming. And that's made up of Turkey, Russia, Iran, and Libya. And like I said, once that war is done, that's where it kind of opens the door for an Iran and Iraq to be part of this, merged into this final beast empire. You could see that happening to bring in the Sunnis and the Shia type of Islamic view of this final beast empire. America, UK, Australia. You could kind of see this happening. Maybe Italy, Spain, Greece, could kind of fall into this whole new empire. Who knows? Who else could be a part of that? We're not sure, but definitely keep an eye on it. You have to kind of keep these things loosely held because we don't know exactly how it's going to fall out, but we should be looking for these changes in the near future. So look for the rise of the beast empire, which means we have to look for first the demise of America, the demise of its economic power and strength, and the rise of this global, ultimately merged into a global power, which will fill that vacuum. And I think that's very near. And again, then we'll start picking up where we'll see this peace agreement again that will happen in Israel. I think it'll probably take a back seat now. We'll see, but I think it's probably going to take a back seat now. It's probably going to be delayed and blah, 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 since Trump's no longer going to be there to facilitate that. And Kushner, keep an eye on who ultimately fits into that void. I still got my eye on Kushner for right now. I think he's the guy that we should probably look at the most. And if he's the one that kind of winds up in 4 years from now rising up out of this, or maybe sooner, depending on how this happens, to be that one that they give their power and authority to. Maybe it's not him, I don't know. But right now, he's a guy that I have my eye on because he's a guy that's done so much, accomplished so much, but also the guy who facilitated the moving of the embassy, the guy who facilitated, Trump gets the credit because he's the president, but the guy really behind it that was doing it was Kushner, the guy who did a lot of things that were unbelievable in a short period of time. And he's also the one that's been the heading up this whole peace agreement. And if he comes to power, you can then see that peace agreement be a part of his platform, see what I did, see what I negotiated, I can continue this, blah, 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 especially if you see the Gog-Magog war happening. He could be the guy then that's immediately put into that position to facilitate peace in that region, since he was doing it already. You can just see that happening. So for the Antichrist rise, and I'll probably do a separate video again on that guy, but that's what I'd be looking for. So keep an eye on him. He'll probably kind of fade back a little bit for now, but he'll reemerge, I think, here in the near future, if it is him. And if it's not him, then, like I said, then we'll look and see who it is. But right now, that's the guy I've got my eye on as the Antichrist. And then the Beast Empire means that America must demise in some way, probably economically. They're probably going to print a lot of money and lock a lot of stuff down, in my guess. And we'll see what happens. But like I said, we hold these things a little bit loosely just because we're not sure exactly how all is going to fall out, but we have a general idea of the final configurations for sure. 10-nation coalition, the Antichrist coming to power, and ultimately his global economic system. 7-year reign, 3.5 years total reign. That's what we're looking for. Obviously, I believe the pre-tribulation rapture, so we won't be able to see it, but I think we will see the revealing of the Antichrist. We'll ultimately know who he is. We'll point out to the world, and I think that'll be prior to the rapture of the church. But it'll be before the tribulation begins. So anyway, keep looking up. It's exciting times to be alive as a Christian. Yeah, don't be discouraged because of the election. Hey, things happen. God's got his plan. So our hope isn't in Trump. Our hope is in the Lord. Hopefully that's how you look at it. Don't get that confused. So yeah, keep looking up, and it's exciting. It's exciting times to be alive. It's exciting to be a Christian, to see God's hand working throughout the world. And I think our return, the Lord's return for us, as he promised. If you get a chance, read John chapter 14, verses 1 through 3. And, it's his promise to us. Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff. So, it's exciting. So, anyway, God bless, be safe, and we'll see you in the next video.